We're getting
Melissa?
started.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hi.
um,
Now Michelle and I just got done talking like 10 minutes ago.
I know, but we had to log off so you guys could log on. So hi, everybody.
We're going to get started. Coffee Chat is on Ban the Box. And today, Courtney Kayola. With me today are Michelle Pine and Melissa Ramsey. Oh, and Craig Wiggins. I'm sorry. Craig was with us the other day, so I forgot. So we are going to get started today, and Michelle is going to start us off today discussing exactly what Ban the Box is and what it means to your organization. So if you want, Michelle.
And thanks, everybody, for joining us today. This is a really interesting topic. So I'm wondering, does anybody out there have any questions or comments or any thoughts about Ban the Box before we get into it a little bit?
You go, if you unmute yourself, you guys can ask any questions.
Thanks, Melissa. Ban the Box. So does your organization have a checkbox on any of your hiring documents next to the question, have you ever been convicted of a crime, or perhaps you have felony or misdemeanor? You don't even have a checkbox, but you have the question. Well, for many of us, this question and the box have been a staple in the hiring process. I've seen it on pretty much every job application as we've been part of the workforce. In recent years, and I think it goes back a good 5 years and started with Hawaii, but recently it's really gained some momentum, it appears that the initiative is taking hold, and certain jurisdictions are limiting when and what you can ask on your hiring documents at what point in time. They all vary a little bit. It also comes into background check forms, so some of you might be wondering, well, what background check company talking about Ban the Box? Well, we have these on our forms, and we now have a version that does have these questions on. So it does affect our forms and our process as well. So we thought it would be a good forum to talk a little bit about it. So every jurisdiction varies. There's all kinds of different regulations and stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into the Ban the Box. So there's also initiatives where there's individual assessments, and some of the individual assessments, like we're headquartered in New York, and New York has had Article 23A for years, and that's an individual assessment. And the EEOC in 2012, with its best practices guidance for employment decisions, also has individual assessments as part of that. And you'll see some of these Ban the Box legislations in different jurisdictions also have individual assessment parameters. So there's a lot of different things going on with Ban the Box, but what generally people have taken the term Ban the Box to refer to all of these and these initiatives going on right now.
Before we move forward, anybody else have audio problems? One of our attendees is saying that they unfortunately are having audio problems. So does anybody else have a problem?
We're recording this, so that may help. People might be able to circle back around if you're having trouble now. Okay, recording, if you're having a little trouble, we are recording it, and we'll post that later on, so you might be able to catch up with us then, or we could do this one-on-one for you as well if you are having trouble. Okay. It's estimated that more than 70 million U.S. adults have a criminal history, and Ban the Box initiatives are an effort to increase the employability of anyone previously convicted of a crime, thus reducing recidivism rates. It also, in some jurisdictions, steps into fair housing practices. It's not just employment that is governed by Ban the Box, but it's also fair housing in some jurisdictions. So to date, and this is constantly changing and there's lots of proposed legislation, we've got 13 states that have adopted Ban the Box. Now only 6 of those states apply to private employers, the rest apply to only public employers. Washington, D.C. has jumped aboard, and we have 69 cities and counties. As I said earlier, we're headquartered in New York, so and as of this last Tuesday, the 18th, City of Rochester's Ban the Box was effective. So we also have Buffalo, which predated Rochester's Ban the Box. And I believe there's some Ban the Box initiatives in New York City, but I believe most of those refer to public employers and not private employers. So it's coming and it's around us, and you know, it might be where you are, it might be coming to where you are, it might be something that you want to consider, or not. Your jurisdiction shouldn't have to comply with something like this. So do you have any questions or comments about the box at this point?
Just a mute one does have a question or anything.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the different variations amongst the Ban the Box regulations.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. Like Michelle said, there are a lot of variations from jurisdiction to jurisdiction on the Ban the Box regulations. So just to name a few of them, the type of employer the law applies to, either public and or private. Also, the size of the employer the law applies to, which can be either for more employees or 15 or more employees, or it'd say all sizes of employer of a certain type and different things like that. Ask about criminal past at a certain point in the hiring process. Sometimes it's after the interview, or it could be after a conditional job offer. And
yeah, Courtney, I want to add a little bit there. We were discussing this as a group internally the other day, and this came up. And certain legislation says you can ask these questions after initial contact, whether it be a telephone interview or an in-person interview. And some of the regulations specifically state that you have to make a conditional job offer before you ask these questions. So you have to be really well versed when it comes to when in the process you're going to ask about a criminal past. So you can still ask about an individual's criminal history. You can still, of course, do background check, whether, you know, some places just decided never to ask the question, but you still do the background check. So it's just a change in your process. So you've got to be aware of which legislation affects your organization or multiple your organization if you have multiple offices and stuff like that in different jurisdictions that may apply. So
I say that enough that you really need to be aware of what exactly the regulation is in your area, because, you know, like I said, from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, you know, the city right next to you could be different. So you really have to be aware of that. Also, the documentation requirements of decisions made on criminal data in some jurisdictions is different. And
that individual assessment, Courtney, we were talking about the individual assessment, how you make your decisions based upon, you know, individually looking at the person. Like, let's take Article 23A. How long has it been since the conviction? What have they done for rehabilitation since? And all the other individual criteria. And how does that directly relate to the job description and the job explanation, job description, that kind of information?
right. And a copy of the background reports applied to the subject is required in some jurisdictions, so you should have that as well.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd variation in some of the laws. Now, those of you that are very familiar with background checks, you know that when you deny somebody a position or a promotion due to a background check, you have to give them the pre-adverse adverse action. With that pre-adverse goes a copy of the report. Now, this copy of the report variations in the ban the box law seem duplicative. I've seen some that were in the pre-passing stage, and they were a little bit burdensome and like I said, duplicative. So we've seen a lot of those go away before they actually become legislation, but there are some where you have certain requirements when you're relying upon the background check report in addition to the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So be aware of that.
Great, thanks. Does anybody have any questions at this point about anything we've discussed? Unmute yourself if anyone does want to ask a question or make a comment. Next, Melissa is going to talk about some of the pros of Ban the Box.
Good morning. Like I said, I'm going to give you the pros about banning the box. First, it allows the applicants with criminal history to get further in the hiring process. The box discourages individuals with criminal history from even applying. Can be evaluated on a job qualification, not past criminal activity.
That's a good one there, Melissa, because you're not clouded by anything that may have been relayed on a form that had the box information previously and stuff like that. So you're really looking at every candidate and their qualifications for the job and why you chose them there, and you'll deal with the criminal history later on when you run the report and get that.
It also eliminates a possible discriminatory hiring process.
Yeah, comment on that, Melissa. So under Title VII, there's race discrimination, and it is believed that make certain decisions based upon criminal activity, especially like just across the board blanket decisions, like anybody convicted of a felony is not going to work for our organization. That can be discriminatory because more African American and Hispanic individuals have been convicted than white. So you can end up disproportionately hiring individuals, and that can be discriminatory. So that's kind of how you hear this anti-discrimination tied to ban the box and things like that, but that's how it comes together, is the Title VII race, and it comes down to the statistics where Blacks and Hispanics are ultimately arrested more, which leads to more convictions, and that's where all of this is stemming from. So if you think, well, how does it discriminate? Because a criminal is not a protected class, but it gets down to the race part of discrimination.
Employment is a significant factor in reducing recidivism.
Society as a whole.
Now, Craig is going to give you the cons about banning the box.
And first one will look the same. It's going to be the same as the first pro. Allow applicants with a criminal history to get further in the hiring process.
And, you know, it's a pro and it's a con. It really depends upon how you look at it. It depends upon your organization. I find it interesting that some states have laws that specifically say that, you know, anybody convicted of XYZ cannot work in a nursing home setting, for example, but yet, you know, if you have a ban the box situation, that conflicts with this other state law. So, you know, it depends upon, you know, your organization, what type of industry you're in, what your clientele's like. So, you know, is it a pro or is it a con that the ban the box legislation allows applicants with a criminal history to get further in the hiring process? It's an individualized answer to that, but we wanted to point it out from both perspectives. And same with the next one, Craig.
The box discourages individuals with a criminal history from even applying. There's a conflict with federal and state laws.
The example I just gave, like with the nursing home and stuff like that. I've seen some that have been very detailed and they take into consideration, and they specifically say that, you know, other laws would supersede this particular law. So if you're in an industry that's regulated, you should follow that and not worry about conflict and having to make a big decision of which one you're going to comply with. You know, there are some conflicts out there that do fall through the cracks and don't get taken care of before these become actual law.
connection to the workplace and client protection as an afterthought. Discharge opportunity afforded when an applicant with a criminal history has not disclosed the conviction which is later found. Efforts to comply with all hiring laws. Relied upon integrity tests during the hiring process in regards to truthful disclosure on hiring documents. And for human resource professionals and job applicants.
Some good ones to think about there. Eliminating the relied on integrity test. This is one, you know, so many of our clients do not hire somebody because they falsified their hiring documents. At one point in time, they're asked to fill out the application, and they say they've never been convicted of a crime. When it becomes obvious a background check is going to be run and they're asked to fill out the consent form for the background check, then they've been convicted of a crime. So just falsifying the documents is an integrity test right then and there. You don't even incur the cost of the background check, and the person is eliminated. So that whole process, which a lot of our clients have really relied upon, it goes by the wayside with the Ban-the-Box.
And actually, someone did chat in a question, which we are going to get to further in the presentation, but they asked if we have new consent forms that do not have the misdemeanor or felony questions on them. And to let you know that, yes, we do. All of our consent forms now we have all in a Ban-the-Box. So Michelle is going to talk about that, like I said, a little later, but I just wanted to answer that question. And does any other questions before we go on? Okay.
That was a good question, and thanks for chiming in there. So some organizations like Target and Walmart, they've just implemented Ban-the-Box across the board. It's too hard for them to deal with all these different legislative changes and all the different jurisdictions. So they did away with the Ban-the-Box on the application. Now, as far as the rest of their hiring process, I don't really know what they did. You know, we talk about some of these are very restrictive and some aren't. If you have multiple Ban-the-Box legislations affecting your organization due to multiple locations, you'll probably want to just comply with the most stringent of them across the board so that you're compliant and you have one HR process. Okay, our response. So we're allowing you to have a choice. You know, whether or not this affects you now, affects you in the future. We have modified all of our forms, and we have also modified our portal technology for those of you who may be on our electronic consent form. You can choose to have it turned off from your portal technology there. So, you know, based upon the legal advice of your lawyer and your other compliance team members, you can choose what you want to do when it comes to the Ban-the-Box legislation. So the next slide is going to show you a little bit about it. So we have our client page, and most of you are familiar with this. It's basically our home page /client. It is a hidden page, so you have to know to type that in to get there or have the URL in your welcome email as you all do that, our clients. So we used to have our forms that are now on the bottom left, which is consent form. I know that this is hard to read, but it's just to show you the page. You can go ahead and go there and see it better. But we moved a few forms lower left. It's the service agreement, pre-adverse, adverse action, a few other forms there. And we took our regular consent forms that were in the middle and left those, and we made a Ban-the-Box version that took those criminal questions off of our consent forms for you. So it's the same form with the Ban-the-Box version on the right. They're side by side for you there. So you can get the PDF of the forms as needed for whichever way you choose to go there. I'm going to show you the consent form before. So before, down about to the way down, you see, have you ever been convicted of a misdemeanor or felony? Do you have any pending criminal charges against you at this time? Any further information, date of the offense, name of the court, case number, other information there. So that whole section has been removed now. So this form is still out there, and then after we got rid of it. So if you choose the BTD version of the consent form, Ban the Box version, you're going to have those questions are gone, and you have all the other information we need to run the background check, along with your disclosure and authorization. So these sample forms recommended for you, and you know, you can use them as you like. It's your requirement for compliance there, but we provide you know, samples or forms that you can choose to use if you'd like. So those are our versions of the Ban the Box. Or Here to Stay initiative. Does anybody have any comments on that?
I think just a phase.
I think it might be here to stay, and only because as I researched this, I believe it was about 2009, so about 5 years ago, Hawaii was the first state to do this, and you've seen it gain momentum, kind of like a flywheel. You know, it was turning really slowly at first. Now the flywheel's spinning pretty good, and there's legislation in a lot of different areas with, so a lot to consider.
Does any questions or comments? Is there anyone on the call that knows that Ban the Box has recently, you know, affected their area? I wanted to let everyone know that myself, Courtney, Melissa, and Craig are part of the compliance team here at Commercial Investigations, and we are continuously watching the federal and state legislation concerning background investigations, being, you know, part of that. So, you know, we will be to keep you informed on, you know, any areas that this is affecting. We also provide the client assistance with FCRA regulations, and if anyone has any questions at any time, you can always call us at 800-284-0906, or feel free to email any of us at staff@commercialinvestigationsllc.com.
I'm going to go through a few more slides about us. I'd just like to thank everybody for attending today. Please let us know any follow-up questions or comments you have. Keep in mind that our webinar series for 2015 is going to every other month, so we'll have 6 sessions. We're always looking for topics, and this topic actually superseded another topic because it became so popular this year. We thought we would put it in instead of another topic that we had planned. So feel free to let us know what we can do to further help and educate you when it comes to background checks or something ancillary to background checks like Ban the Box. Anything else we could do for anybody today?
I just want to say someone did comment saying that it has not affected their area, but they do believe it's a slippery slope, that they have a duty to their customers to keep them safe. When, you know, I agree, it's very true. That's the problem with this. You know, I understand the reasoning behind the Ban the Box movement and trying to be able to employ more people, but, you know, it definitely, that is a concern.
It is, and you still can comply and protect your clientele at the same time. It's just a little bit more cumbersome than in the past, and new processes and procedures need to be put into place. You know, we've talked it through with some clients that have had some locations affected and others not. They've tried to put into place certain things for those locations and keep it out of those locations that are not affected. You know, it's a process and it's people involved, so you have to be very careful how you're changing your process and make sure that you're still doing things at a certain point in time, whether it be asking, have you ever been convicted of a crime, but at the right point in time based upon the ban the box legislation versus getting rid of the question altogether. You know, perhaps you don't have it on any of your forms, but as part of your conditional job offer, you have that conversation with them, or you have a separate form for them to fill out at that point in time. It can become a little bit cumbersome initially putting that together, but again, it gets down to protecting your clientele and complying with the law.
Right. Okay, let everybody know too, Commercial Investigations LLC is a certified woman-owned enterprise and licensed private investigative agency, and our vision is to be the most innovative and educational background investigations partner. So thanks for joining us today, and like I said before, if anyone has any questions after, you can always feel free to give us a call. Everyone.